Hello guys, espero que se encuentren muy bien en casa. Vamos a dar inicio a nuestra clase de Science and Geography. Simbiosis es la relación que tiene un ser vivo con otro para poder desarrollarse y tener vitalidad dentro de su hábitat. Pongamos atención entonces cómo funciona la simbiosis. Parasites. This relationship is helpful for hosts. One living thing, a parasitic leaf of another. It hosts. As the parasite is free, it's harm, then host. For example, the mixto that goes on the trees, free, unsafe.
Looking bird called a cowbird is actually a parasite. A female cowbird will lay her eggs in another bird's nest and expect the unsuspecting mom to raise her young. If the unsuspecting bird kicks the cowbird's eggs out, the cowbird may come back later and destroy her nest. This is just one example of parasitism. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship in which one organism benefits and the other organism is harmed and in some cases may die. Let's take a look at some examples. Mosquitoes. These annoying pests will show up at most picnics and have a meal at your expense. Mosquitoes are carriers of some of humanity's most deadly illnesses. So the mosquito gets a meal and you may get sick. In a similar fashion, ticks will do the same to you, dogs, or even livestock. They latch onto their hosts and start eating. Ticks can infect their hosts with many diseases, including Lyme disease. Many worms are parasitic. This leech is a segmented worm that attaches to a host like you and gets a meal from your blood. They secrete a chemical that actually prevents the blood from clotting. If present in great numbers, besides being debilitating, in extreme cases may cause death. Some bacteria are parasitic. E. coli. There are hundreds of different types or strains of bacteria E. coli. Most of these are harmless and live in the intestines of healthy people and animals, but some strains of E. coli make a strong toxin that may cause severe infection or death. Some plants are parasitic. Mistletoe is a plant you may see high in trees, but it is actually a parasite. Mistletoe will attach to their host tree or shrub and extract water and nutrients from this host plant. Another parasitic plant is albino redwood. An albino redwood is a redwood tree which is unable to produce chlorophyll, so it has white needles instead of the normal green. It survives by obtaining sugar through the connections of its roots of those of its neighboring normal redwoods. Not very nice. And finally, parasitoid wasp. They lay their eggs on or inside the bodies of such hosts as arthropods or caterpillars. These eggs will grow into an offspring that will eventually eat its way out, causing the death of its host. If you'd like to know more about parasitic relationships, this playlist will help. And as always,
Mutualisms. This relationship of benefits for two living things. For example, some small African bird prey on parasitic insect. The insect prey on herbivores, prey on the birds, prey on the insect. They free the herbivores from the parasite.
to talk about the symbiotic relationship called mutualism. With mutualism, both organisms involved in the relationship benefit from each other. Let's look at 10 examples to help us understand mutualism. The first example, clownfish and sea anemones. Clownfish are small, brightly colored fish, and they're often found in coral reefs. They also are found in the tentacle of sea anemones, which have stinging cells that can kill other fish. The sea anemone provides protection for the clownfish from predators, and then the clownfish benefits the sea anemones by eating algae and cleaning them up. Next are termites and intestinal flagellates. The flagellates have the ability to digest parts of the wood that the termite eats. So the termite gets help with digestion, and the intestinal flagellates get a nice meal. Next, many animals eat the fruit of trees and plants, and then they disperse these seeds. The animal benefits from eating, and the plant gets benefits from seed dispersals. Humans and other animals breathe out carbon dioxide, which plants use for photosynthesis, and in return, plants give off oxygen that humans and animals use for respiration. Another very common one, bees take in pollen from flowers to make honey from it. The bee spreads the pollen to help the flower in reproduction, and then the bees get a nice, tasty meal. Next, you have the bullhorn acacia, and ants nest inside the plant's thorn in exchange for shelter, and then the ants protect the acacias from attack by other herbivores. The spider crab and algae. The spider crab likes to hang out in shallow areas. The algae like to live on the back of the spider crab. The algae camouflages the spider crab, and the spider crab gives the algae a place to hang out and live. The red-billed oxpecker likes to eat ticks on the back of the impala's coat. It's a cleaning relationship. And finally, one of my favorite is you have the relationship between the pistol shrimp and the goby. They both live in a burrow. The shrimp maintains and makes the burrow, and then the goby, having better vision than the pistol shrimp, alerts the shrimp of danger. They both benefit from each other. One makes the burrow, and the other provides lookout and protection. There we go, 10 examples of mutualism.
Competition. The relationship is harmful for our species. For example, several species many need some safe resources, food, refuge, and light. Trees in forests compete for sunlight, some receive more light and rotate. Others receive less light and die.
3 types of relationships found in almost every ecosystem: competition, predator and prey relationships, and symbiosis. All organisms need nutrients, water, a space to grow, and possibly a mate. Often, these resources are in short supply. In fact, the carrying capacity of an environment is the maximum population size of a species that an environment can support. This scarcity of limited resources leads to competition between different species, but also between organisms of the same species. Intraspecific competition is competition within the same species. These owls compete against one another for the same rats, moles, and shrews. These male zebras compete with one another for a female mate. These pine trees that grow close to one another compete for sunlight and nutrients in the soil. These water buffalo compete against one another for water, food, and a mate. And these hippos are also competing for food, water, and possibly a mate. Interspecific competition is competition between different species. Trees in a tropical rainforest compete for sunlight and nutrients in the soil. Bears and wolves compete for the same food. Lions and hyenas, they compete for food. In fact, they even like to take each other's food. The predator-prey relationship has been going on for a long time. The predator hunts the prey, and the prey tries to outsmart the predator. A couple examples. Bears are the predator, and the salmon is the prey. This Venus flytrap is the predator, and insects like flies will be the prey. This lynx is the predator, and the snowshoe hare is the prey. Symbiosis describes a close interaction between two or more different species. In this video, I will focus on three types. They are mutualism, in which both organisms benefit, commensalism, in which one organism benefits and the other is neither helped nor harmed, and parasitism, in which one benefits and the other is harmed, or maybe even killed. Okay, let's look at some examples of mutualism. First, each one of us has a personalized collection of bacteria called a microbiome living within us. This microbiome or bacteria break down carbohydrates and toxins. They help us absorb fatty acids, and they also protect your cells in the intestines from invading pathogens. In return, the bacteria get a nice place to live and food to eat. Next, termites. Termites are nature's recyclers, and they break down the cellulose of trees and decaying wood. However, the termites cannot digest this cellulose themselves. Instead, they depend on one-celled protozoa. These protozoa live in the stomachs of the termites, and in return, they get food to eat and a place to live. So again, it's a win-win. Next is commensalism. Remember, one benefits and the other is neither helped nor harmed. Hermit crabs live in the shells of once abandoned snails. This relationship helps the hermit crab because it gives them some protection, but these snails don't really care. Next, squirrels. They live and stay in trees for protection, yet the tree is neither helped nor harmed. Next, you have these tiny little mites, and they hitch a ride on flies. The mites are equipped with some type of method to grip onto the insect, and they get transported around. This phloretic mite is just a hitchhiker and does not feed during this time of being carried around. The mites receive transportation, but the fly is neither helped nor harmed. And finally, we have parasitism. One benefits, yet the other is harmed. Lampreys, which are these strange-looking primitive fish, have a very limited digestive system. They attach and feed on the body of other fish with more advanced digestive systems, and many times it will lead to the death of the host fish. This next one falls under life is strange. A cuckoo, which is a bird, lays its eggs in a warbler's nest. The cuckoo young will knock the warbler's eggs out of the nest when they're born, and then the warbler will raise the cuckoo's young. Not very nice. So there we go, take a look at some types of symbiosis and symbiotic relationships. Thanks for watching.
Commensalids. An association between two organisms in which all benefits and other derived neither benefits nor harm.
I'd like to talk about the symbiotic relationship called commensalism. Commensalism occurs when one organism benefits from the relationship and the other organism, for the most part, is unaffected. Let's look at a couple examples to help us get a better understanding of commensalism. Up first are cattle egret and cows or bulls. The cattle egrets like to follow the cows along because the cows stir up insects from the grass. The cattle egret eat the insects, and the cows, for the most part, are unaffected. Orchids are a type of flowering plant that like to make their base or attach to the branches of trees. They benefit by getting sunlight, and then the tree, for the most part, is unaffected. The remora, also called suckerfish, are small fish that like to attach to sharks. They don't really harm the sharks, and they get a free mode of transportation, a little bit of protection, and then pick up some scraps of food. The burdock seeds are shaped in which they attached to passing animals or even your clothing if you pass by. They don't really hurt the animal that they attach to, and they get seed dispersal. And finally, barnacles and whales have a similar relationship. The barnacles can stick themselves to whales. The whales don't really notice that they're there, and the barnacles get a good free ride and also get some nutrition from the floating plankton that passes the whale. So there we go, a couple examples of commensalism. One organism benefits and the other organism, for the most part, is unaffected.
Thank you guys, espero que haya sido de mucha ayuda el siguiente video para ustedes y nos vemos la próxima clase.